Last year, I counted down my top 15 flat rides, so let's do it again. I've now been to a total of 21 different locations of which I've ridden at least one flat ride. For this particular list, I asked you guys if you wanted me to include drop towers on the list or not, because I consider drop towers flat rides, but I also have a lot of drop towers on this list.
Enough is never enough.
Most of you wanted drop towers included, but if you don't, I have made a list in the comments below without them included that you can check out.
How cool is that?
This list is of course based off of my favorites to ride. I love drop towers, so you will see a lot of drop towers on this list. And I typically do not like spinning, so stuff like a disco is my worst nightmare. Without further ado, let's go! Number 15, Tårngyset at Bakken. This is the smallest large drop tower I've done.
Okay.
It's an SNS double shot and it's a short but really fun experience. It starts off with a launch, which is always fun and has a bit of force as well, whereas it's followed by 2 ejector pops that get you out of your seat pretty good, followed by 2 floater pops with some insane stomach tickling. It's honestly one of my favorite rides at the world's oldest amusement park, and it's always a blast to go on. Beating it though at number 14 is Katapulten at Grønland. This is a big ol' upgrade from the double shot. This is an SNS combo tower, meaning that it still has that launch, which is even more forceful here. It's got a flojector pop at the top since it's a lot taller, and then after that it goes into normal turbo drop style, where it takes you up to the top and drops you with even more power than a regular turbo drop like the Gyldne Tårn.
You suck!
The drop is surprisingly good for an SNS tower, and the location makes it a whole lot better, especially at night. This is beautiful. Number 13 is Apocalypseberg Sky Battle at Legoland Billund. Think about the Gerstlauer Sky Roller model and then just make it a lot better. That's the technical aerobat. This one goes up to almost a vertical angle, which can create some very chaotic and unpredictable spins. You of course have to use the wings in order to get yourself upside down, and it's easy yet very tricky to get upside down. Due to the spin, it can be pretty hard to figure out exactly how to do it properly, but it's a blast trying to do all sorts of tricks with this thing. And it's easily the best type of self-inverting rides. Is that a thing? Number 12 is Sven Svingom at Bonbonland. Semperla's giant discovery model is a hit with me, because this is just a massive ride with super high forces, an amazing feeling of the wind, violent floater airtime, you heard me.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a super intense ride, and one thing you definitely have to do on a ride like this is try to ride it without shoes on, or even better, without socks. That's just awesome. It is hard to get lucky with the spin on a Semperla giant discovery, or at least on this one. It seems like you pretty much face the same way on most of the large swings, which is a shame. And of course, I can have a bit of a risk with nausea on a ride like this, which is why it isn't any higher, but I still love this ride. It's super intense, and when it rides well, it rides really well. But just beating it at number 11 though is Tian at Djursommerland. Intamin's gyro swing model is pretty much the massive pendulum concept perfected.
Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
It fixes all the issues I have with Semperla's version. It has a better cycle that gets up to the max swings a lot quicker. The restraints are much better. They're basically lap bars and allow you to have a lot of freedom. And it even feels a little more intense. Plus it looks better, especially Tian. I mean, it's a fucking tiger. And it does indeed have a lot of cool theming this ride, especially in the queue line. It's basically themed to tigers in, I believe, India.
Precisely.
And there's no doubt that this is one of the most intense flat rides I've ridden. Again, it's still a spinning ride, which is why it isn't any higher, but honestly, it's a nitpick because this is an amazing big swing ride. Kicking off the top 10 though is Kobertunnel. Prepare for a lot of drop towers. This is the drop tower at Bonbonland, and it may just be the most forceful drop tower I've done. It's a Fabri Mega Drop, and it has a super violent pull downward when it drops you. It feels like a cable just pulling you as hard as possible, which happens right after this wonderful view of the countryside. It does lack the sense of grandeur, and the drop is rather short, but it can't be underestimated with the power that it has. It's easily one of the best rides at Bonbonland. Beating it at number 9 though is Dalton Terror. Introducing the first Intamin drop tower on the list, this is a giant drop 4 model. And while it isn't as forceful as the previous entry, it is still very forceful, and it has a much longer drop. Plus, it also drops you immediately and caught Villas completely off guard. You really have no time to take in the views, even though the views of Conda here are absolutely incredible and really cool. But this is as simple as it gets, a large, forceful, sustained drop tower, and pretty much the same thing goes for my preferred option on the next spot, Frickfall och Frickfall Tilt. This is an intimate multi-drop 4, so it has more than one option, that being a floorless tilt with a 15-degree tilting, but that is not something I'm a fan of. It hurt my rib somehow, I don't know, I hate the floorless option.
You don't want to be like this.
But the sit-down option is just as great as Dalton Terror. It simply also takes a photo at the top, which I really like, and the views are far superior. Stockholm is my favorite city after all, so this is another really good drop tower. At number 7 is Jadekik, which is an unusual observation gyro drop tower from Ride Engineers Switzerland. That was a mouthful. It has both a slow and a fast option for the ride, meaning you can ride it as an observation tower or a normal drop tower. I've only ever ridden it as the drop tower, obviously, as you still get a lot of time with the spins and at the top to take in the views, which are amazing. The views of Aarhus are especially awesome at night, and when it finally drops you, it also has some very decent force. It is almost as forceful as the previous 2 entries, but a thing that makes this better as well is the fact that it only has lap bars, so you have a shitload of freedom. In my opinion, this is the best drop tower in Denmark. At number 6 is Mystery Castle at Phantasialand. This is one of the weirdest flat rides I've done easily. It's a set of 6 intimate giant drop 8 drop towers, similar to something like Zumanjaro Drop of Doom, except this is all inside of a massive castle dick.
Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
The rides on this also differ throughout the day, and I believe that the later in the day you ride it, the better it gets. It has launches, very floaty drops that are really wild in the dark and with a bunch of flashing lights, and there's also just a ton of theming, especially at the top of the tower, which really makes the ride as great as it is. The best rides are obviously the long ones, and they also subvert expectations. This ride isn't so much about the force, but it's a really cool overall experience with a solid mix of everything. At number 5, finally a normal flat ride, Infinity, which is easily the best pendulum ride I've done. It might just be the best pendulum ride out there, I'm not sure, but it's definitely a good contender for it, because this is a KMG in version 24 model. This is of course a traveling ride, and the forces on this are even more powerful than the previously mentioned gyro swings. It's probably the second most forceful flat ride I've ever done. Plus the floater airtime is once again super strong, but this one also does the full flips. You go up into hybrid coaster height with this ride while you're upside down. The hang time is absolutely insane and can leave you up there for quite a while, just chilling up there.
Just chilling. Killing.
While spinning. I mean, this is pure insanity. Especially with the restraints. These are not big, bulky restraints. This feels terrifying. And even at the end of the ride, you also get some flips that aren't intense, but they're really fun and kind of catch you off guard. Like, I seriously thought our seat fell off the thing. It really is the full pendulum experience on this ride. But at number 4, once again, is a drop tower, Scream. This is the best normal drop tower I've done, and it's an intimate gyro drop. It's tall, fast, and incredibly intense. Plus, the view, especially at night and especially during Halloween, really did it in for me. If you face the park, it's beautiful, but if you face the other way into nature while it's dark, it's just pitch black and you can't see a thing.
It's dark and creepy and a little weird.
It's scary as hell. The drop is also mind-blowingly forceful and takes ages. It is super sustained, and the brakes hit so hard, and something that's really cool is once you brake, you get a massive gust of wind. Almost like a dragon flapped its wing at you. I don't think it can get any better for a regular drop tower than this. Which is why we're moving on to a weird drop tower, Ikaros at Grönelund. This is a mind-blowing experience. Let's take the views from Catapulten, make them almost twice as tall, and finally flip the riders 90 degrees downward at the top. That is what this rare intimate Skyjump 16 drop tower does. The feeling of hanging up there looking directly down is way wilder than on a B&M dive coaster. And when you finally drop, it feels like a launch. You are firing down face first toward the ground and brake really late, which is super scary, especially on the first ride, and then you do a really whippy flip as well. The first ride on Icarus is easily the best ride you're ever gonna get. It's easily one of the biggest adrenaline kicks I've ever had on any ride. This is an insane drop tower experience. It does lose some of its off factor afterwards, which is why I have moved it slightly down my rankings after rewriting it in 2022, but it's still a fucking awesome ride and the best ride at Grönalund as well. But at number 2, Vertigo. I miss this ride so fucking much. Holy shit. Vertigo was perhaps the objectively best flat ride in the world. It's of course debatable, but this is a super strong contender. It was a massive technical park flying fury, and let's just go through to the right side and explain how insane this is. You start out with spinning while it goes slowly through the massive loops, and doing this spin you can get all sorts of laterals, hang time, air time, and whip, and just fucking everything. Then you go into the super fast, more than 60-mile-an-hour loops that pull 5 Gs, and they last a fucking decade. Alright, it takes a long while before this cycle is done, and it's just full force.
Stop doing full force!
An absolute blackout machine. And then when it finally slows down, you just go into the crazy spinning again. It's easily the most intense ride I've ever done, and it cannot be underestimated how insane it was that this ride even existed in the first place. I will miss it forever. I'm still heartbroken. But something that I never expected to happen is the fact that my new #1 flat ride is at Disneyland Paris with the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. This is the most chaotically fun and most epic flat ride experience I know. To me, it's the only flat ride I've ever done that I also classify as a dark ride, because the theming is built up that way. You have several scenes on several different levels of the drop tower inside that are fully fleshed out scenes, and it's scary, unfathomably epic, with deep bass sounds and thematic elements to send shivers down your spine.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine.
This is a horror attraction that creeps you out to your core, and is the only flat ride I've ever done that has the same level of epicness as the Swedish Cannon's pre-show, which is a high bar to reach. The drops in between the different levels throughout the ride are also very fun. You only have a seat belt, and it's a completely chaotic cycle, much more so than Mystery Castle. You're constantly getting thrown up and down in a completely unpredictable way, sometimes small ejector pops, other times far more sustained moments to catch you completely off guard, and it ends off with amazing views at the top looking over the park. This is just such an unreal ride to do. It was a lot better than I expected, and I really hope it stays the way it is. I know that the Guardians of the Galaxy version is apparently also really good, but let's just keep that there and then keep this here, alright? I need to write this more. It's one of my favorite rides ever. That's it for this top 15 flat rides I've done. Again, if you want to see a list without drop towers, I will have it posted in the comments below. And let me know what you think about this list, or what your own list is for that matter. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to have even more lists on the way very soon. And otherwise, bye!